Good evening and welcome to the 12th episode of the South African Equestrian Federation's podcast From the Horse's Mouth. My name is Georgina Roberts, and tonight it's my pleasure to do our second discipline spotlight. Tonight we are welcoming the president of the Carriage Driving South Africa Federation, Wayne van Niekerk. He's joining us, and everything you ever wanted to know about carriage driving. My first question was, is it dead? No, it is not dead. It's alive and well. And we're going to be finding out a little bit more about this discipline and how you can join it. Wayne, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you very much for having me.
So before we delve into driving, which is obviously what we had to talk about, I'm a little bit interested. I interviewed you a few years ago for Equine magazine about your driving feats over in Europe.
Yeah.
So do you want to fill us in a little bit about your background? I believe you started driving with Rodney Foster, who's one of our South African greats, of course.
Absolutely. I started driving with Rodney about 12 years ago. I wanted to drive, couldn't find anyone.
What sparked it for you?
I had been doing show jumping up till then. I'd stopped because I started falling off too much, and it wasn't good for business.
Do carriages come with seatbelts? Because I think there's a business model for the other disciplines to come in.
Almost.
Yeah.
But and one thing led to another, and I found Rodney, and he taught me to drive, and then expressed a wish to want to drive overseas once more. He had done it in '95, and I had horses standing in Europe, so we decided, we'll embark on this venture, and it became an adventure. And
that's wonderful.
One thing
grew
led
into a
to
great
another,
passion.
and now we were fortunate to link up with Wade Excel, who's the current world champion, great carriage driver.
This is where you base your horses now.
That's right. He was first in England and now in the Netherlands. And from there we, it's just gone from strength to strength. Started off, had to qualify through the ranks. I've now represented South Africa 3 times in the Pairs World Championships. Done pretty well, I think, for a part-timer.
You're still here, Wayne. That's very impressive.
That's right. And now the next step now is teams, which is 4 in hands.
So you've progressed from 2 horses in a carriage to 4.
Correct.
So is that so in addition to there being different kinds of driving competitions, there's also how many horses you can compete?
Correct. There's different, like you say, driving competitions, but then you can have a single horse, a pair of horses, 2 horses, and then 4, which we call a team. So those are the 3 combinations. And then with a pair, you can have them next to each other or behind each other, a tandem, which is very difficult, and not many people do that.
That's interesting.
And then you got horses and ponies. So they obviously don't compete against each other in the same classes, but yeah.
Okay, so the driving discipline in South Africa at the moment, you said the federation's been quiet for a few years, but that is coming back at the moment in a big way.
Correct. We went through a phase like I think all disciplines have, and there was stagnation and political upheavals. But over the last 3 to 4 years, we've managed to get the society up and running again. We've got a board.
And then COVID happened.
And we got a hiatus there. Oh. But we've got new members that have come in. We've basically gone back to grassroots. All the experienced drivers have retired. Leaving myself and a couple of guys down in the Cape. But with new drivers coming in, we've started at a more grassroots level, getting people to start with singles and just ease in and enjoy the sport for what it is.
Discover it, fall in love.
Absolutely.
What for you was the moment, besides the fact that, what made you decide to start driving, besides the not falling off? Because driving actually sounds like it can be more exciting than show jumping.
When I stopped riding, we got a small stud and we breed horses and they dress hard horses, and I worked the youngsters in long lines, and just behind the horse, I went and I learned from other trainers about just because you're standing behind the horse, you can still train it, and the horse has to engage. You can do
wonderfully effective.
And I always wanted to sit behind it, and and then I thought that would be fantastic.
That's such a like a boy impulse. Now I want to feel the speed. I can feel
right.
Right.
And that's what drove it. And then when I got onto the carriage for the first time, which I think a lot of people do if they've just got the guts to do it is you fall in love with it. It's just unbelievable equestrian sport. It's you are with the horses, you driving, you've got connection. The horsemanship is there. All our aids are there. They're a little bit different, but at the same time, you've got a carriage to consider, the length behind. Yeah. You've got someone on the back of the carriage you need to keep safe. You need to keep your horse safe. So, you know, from a mental point of view, there's a lot that goes in, which, you know, that's, I think, a lot what drew me into it. And then, obviously, as you get a bit more confident, the real excitement starts when the carriage can start to move a bit quicker.
I'm sure. I think from the outside, I think driving's so fascinating because you're handing quite a lot of trust and responsibility over to your horse, and it's putting your money where your mouth is in terms of your training. Have I done the work? Yes, I have. I'm prepared to.
Correct.
I'm prepared to go here.
There's a lot of training involved up front, on the ground, under saddle. You know, we don't just slap our horses in and drive them once a week. They get worked 3, 4, 5 times a week. The schooling is definitive. They all learn from youngsters to go into the bit correctly, work through the back.
Not a shortcut, it's actually a long cut.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, but, you know, the horses are actually incredible animals, and they're very intelligent. And they learn because we've only got 3 aids. We've got the reins in our hand, which is very long. So the contact to the bit is less than what it would be when you ride. We don't have a weight aid, so we don't have a leg aid, but what we do have is a whip. And that whip is not to hit the horse to go forward. The horse learns to go forward on its voice command. That whip is to teach it to soften and to bend, so it becomes our leg.
Becomes your leg aid.
So when we touch it behind the girth, he must soften the rib cage, and if you touch him on the hip, you must engage that inside so that he can get the bend going. And if they're stressing, you can just lay the whip on them, calms them down. And then obviously our voice is important. You speak to the horses all the time, and they learn their names, and they know their names. And in a pair of horses, and in a team of 4 horses, I can speak to my individual horses, and they respond. The ears will flick back, and they, if the one's lazy and I call his name, he'll move up straight away.
That's amazing. That's so fantastic.
Yeah. So it's really it's actually incredible.
Yeah,
incredible sport.
I mean, and that's just such a relationship feeling with the horses, and it really is a team.
It is a team. It is a team because, you know, we got to go through, and at the higher levels, you got to. Can be a bit hairy, but we've all 4 and 5 of us got to get ourselves and each other through safely. Plus, we've got 2 other people on the back that are assisting me, that are doing it for fun, and, you know, they don't want to see their lives end. So, you know, I've got to get them back as well. So, yeah, you know.
Well, life is fun if there's a risk of it ending as well. You know,
yeah.
That's why we all ride.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the different kinds of driving competitions that you can get.
Right. So the most basic one that we get is in where the different breeds show their horses in like a show driving. So that would be more showing the horse off than the carriage driving ability.
We see that at Horse of the Year show.
Yeah, correct, Horse of the Year show, those ones. Then we would do where we do traditional driving. So you would have a traditional carriage with a turnout.
When you say traditional carriage?
It could be like an older antique with,
Okay.
Or if it's overseas, it could be pulling.
Is that what we see in London a lot?
Yeah, those sort of things. You know, because we don't have that strong tradition.
The culture.
Lines here, yeah. We don't really do it over here. And then the main one is what we call combined driving. So that's the 3-phase, which is really based on eventing.
Okay.
So, you know, it's a 3-phase competition consisting of dressage, the cross country, or the marathon, we call it, and the final day is the show jumping part, which is our cones driving.
Okay, so explain to me each of those phases, and do you guys offer those phases individually?
Yeah.
No. Oh, do you? Okay.
Yeah, we do. So in the beginning, you know, we can do them. The ultimate is to do the full 3-phase, but we can do a dressage competition only, or we can do a dressage followed by small cones. We sometimes just do a marathon, but that's more for really on a clinical training.
There's so many riders who would love to just do a cross country.
Yeah.
They would, you know.
Well, we had a competition a while ago, and we had one of our show jumpers, Jason Phillips, joined me. And
Jason's so game for anything. He's been on a couple of eventing
and he
clinics.
came and drove, and he did really well.
That's wonderful.
And he did the full
Jason's
3
a
phase.
fantastic horseman. He's really talented, dressage, jumping, driving.
Yeah.
It's a bit sickening.
And if you're a good horseman, you would take to it a lot
And
easier
really
than what you
enjoy
think.
it. You know, I think it's that element of, like you say, like it's different, but same.
Yeah.
Wonderful feeling of that relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the cones driving is a really fun one. It takes concentration. It's got speed, but it takes the element of, I suppose.
So the
danger.
cones you've literally got cones with a tennis ball balanced on top. Am I correct?
Correct.
Okay.
So there's a certain distance between the wheel length of the carriage either side. So that it'll give you 10 in international competition, 25 in local. So you've got enough space. With a ball on each, you've got to memorize the course. It's like show jumping. It's red on your right and
Sorry, our very lovely podcast gentlemen are just demolishing the studio.
yeah, red on your right and white on your
Okay.
left, and you've got to take it in the correct direction.
Okay.
And
leave the balls up.
Ball goes down, you get penalties, and then there's time penalties. So there's an ideal time that you are left with, and then anything above that you get penalized.
That's fantastic.
So,
That's
yeah.
interesting. So the dressage, how is the dressage part of driving? Have we got, we've got photos. Do you guys want to pull up some photos?
So dressage is probably one of them, or for the people that are starting, and maybe for the crowd that watches, one of the more maybe boring aspects, but for the driving, it's the absolute fundamental of everything. If your horse can't do dressage, you can't do a marathon. If a horse can't bend and it can't step back and
And be responsive to the aids, I'm sure.
Yeah,
And be supple.
Yeah, so that you know the correction of movement and when you need it to be done is vital. So when we do training during the week, we'll train our horses 4 days a week, 3 days a week in dressage, and 1 day in cones. Marathon I'll only do every second week for 1 day. So the dressage is fundamental, and the dressage is done in a 100 by 40 meter arena, exactly the same lettering as ridden dressage.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Yeah, and the same movements. You know, you'd come in halted X, you'd turn right, you would have an extension, you'd have a
That's
collection.
interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, you'd have a deviation. You get marked on correctness, on accuracy, on whether the horse is bending.
Wonderful. So the actual quality, not just the accuracy, the quality
Correct.
of each horse.
Yeah,
That's really hard. I mean, it's coming to a team of horses.
Yeah.
You can't have a rogue.
no.
Okay.
Because he throws you out. Yeah.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we tend to sometimes have
Have a
rogues.
rogue.
Yeah.
There's one on every team.
Yeah.
So then, are you judged by one judge at lower level, and then up in international, like the World Games, you'll have your five judges?
5 judges,
Okay.
correct. So locally,
And are they dressage judges?
some of them are dressage
Okay.
judges that have been
Qualified.
brought across. Yeah. At the moment, we do still use ridden dressage judges that are, but the FEI actually with the Solidarity came across and did an officials course.
Yeah.
And we had we had two judges go through who aren't dressage judges but dressage riders, but did the course. One of them actually did shadow judging at the international level.
Wonderful.
So we've got good judges.
That's
That we
amazing.
can
That's
start
great.
with. Yeah.
Okay. No, that's really good to hear.
Mm.
And I think the judging is, so much of the sport is led by judging, in my experience with dressage as a rider. So I think it's important to set that distinction. You're luring them
Yeah.
to the dark side. That's how
Yeah.
all the disciplines start.
Correct.
I just want to remind everyone that if you have any questions for Wayne, please take advantage of it, and you can leave comments for us in the live chat. And then what I really want to talk about, which we've got on screen at the moment, is the marathon.
Yes.
Okay, so this is obviously like the most exciting thing for people to watch.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. That's what everyone wants to come and watch, and what most of us want to do. So that's our second phase. That's with carriage driving, we split it into 2 phases. It used to be more, but it's split into 2 phases. Section A, which is basically a bit of a navigation. At international levels, you would do a minimum of about 6 kilometers. Locally, we do much less because the horses aren't as fit and
Okay.
can be hotter. And that's just to get them supple, get them to blow a bit of steam off. And then they'll come in, they'll have a vet check. heart rates are taken, and then you start section B. Section B is where we go into the hazards. So the hazards are a group of obstacles that you've got to go through, gated, also A to F, so normally 6 gates. Again, red on your right, white on your left. So you've got to work out. If you take a gate the wrong way, you get penalized. And for every commenced second within the obstacle, you're getting penalized. So you've got to go as fast as you can, essentially. And so that's where the speed comes in. But you've got an ideal time overall. So if you come in over the time, you get penalized. But if you come in under the time, you get penalized, because that means you've driven your horses too hard.
Fast.
Correct. So you've got to manage them. You've got to manage them, and so because they can look, when the horses know what they're doing, when they hit that start of gate A, they're going hell for leather. They love it, and it's a hard sport. I mean, they sometimes bump themselves. They bite themselves off because
really?
But they absolutely love it. Our horses at international level, when that whistle goes 50 meters away, you can just hang on. They take off at a gallop, and they know what they have to do, so, and they absolutely love it. Yet in the dressage arena, they'll be.
But that's the mark of a. So how was the carriage driving sport? How did it originate? Because obviously for the eventing, it was the discipline of the dressage, the stamina of the cross country, and then still the carefulness of the show jumping,
which is exactly the same.
Okay.
So how it came around, 1969, Prince Philip was president of the FER, and he had stopped playing polo and started driving carriages, and absolutely fell in love with it. And a Polish delegate came to him and said, why can't we make it a proper sport? Because it had been a sport, but everyone was doing their own rules. And so they then drew up the rules, and they based it on eventing, because that was the closest they could have. It's evolved a little since then. The sport itself has evolved hugely from the way we harness our horses up, the sort of harnesses, the carriages, to
I imagine there's a lot of technology behind that.
Yeah, and you want it to be faster and faster, like F1, but you also need it to be safer, absolutely, yeah. So that's where it had its origins, and it's mushroomed into one of the biggest growing equestrian sports in the world.
That's wonderful.
Europe, it's absolutely huge.
That's great. So where is this photo taken from?
That was taken at Drebka in Germany, 2019.
I mean, these obstacles look really comprehensive.
They are, and they can be quite, they're strong, because if you bash them, they mustn't fall down. But and they can be quite complicated. So when we walk hazards, that's my navigator at the back, best mate. He's a very experienced navigator, and I started with
good way to cement a friendship.
Yeah.
I see you also have to have regulation safety helmets.
Absolutely. We've got helmets, we've got body protectors.
Oh, I see, okay.
And if you see nicely, I'm wearing a safety belt.
Yeah, so I want one of those for dressage.
Yeah, you asked me if I wear a safety belt. For marathon, I wear a safety belt. But my safety belt is controlled by my backstepper. So the one part is connected to the carriage, the other's in his hand. So it's not allowed
you have mobility.
And if the carriage goes over and you let go, I've got to be able to escape. So, but he keeps me in. So he keeps the carriage down on the ground. He helps navigate. And if we get close to a pole, he actually will bounce the carriage off the pole so that we don't strike.
That's quite a physical.
Yeah. So backsteppers on the back are hugely important. So in driving. And that's another great thing about the sport, is that it's a team. You're not alone, and you've got a team, and everyone is vitally important.
Lovely.
Yeah,
it can be a very isolated sport.
Yeah.
Once you're on your horse, that's lovely.
And like, for instance, he's not a horseman at all, but he's
absolutely
he's now the team chef to keep.
That's great.
Yeah, but and he loves the sport. But he doesn't drive and doesn't want to, but loves that part. So even people that love the sport but don't really want to drive can still be part of the sport.
It's great. I think that's the way to grow a sport, is to have more non-riding positions almost in it. Okay, so that's just exquisite. I mean, that is so beautiful. And that's your groom we were just talking about too?
That is Luan. That's my head groom, yeah.
I think I became friends with her on Facebook, and I just love her. She posts a lot of selfies with the horses. I love it.
Yeah, and no, she's wonderful. She travels with me to the Netherlands, to all our competitions. She looks after, turns out those horses beautifully like that.
They're beautiful.
So, and she's she works very, very hard with you there.
And I just want to, my first thing that I'm noting is the carriages are different between the last photo and this one.
Correct.
Okay.
So this is a presentation carriage. So this is a carriage we would use in dressage and in cones.
Okay.
So it's a more traditional carriage. You'll see the lamps are there.
That's cute. That's lovely.
Yeah. You have to have lamps when you come in. You'll see the driver has to wear a hat, carry a whip, wear gloves, and an apron.
Okay.
And now the apron is more traditional. You get penalized if you're not wearing it. And that just comes from they're trying to maintain the tradition of the past.
Okay.
So that is when the driver would oil his reins to make sure that they wouldn't snap, but it would then leave marks on their pants. That's why they wear aprons.
Oh, that's lovely.
That's the
so you could
reason.
still go in and have dinner and look presentable.
Correct.
That's gorgeous. I love that.
Correct.
Wayne, your horses are so synchronized there.
They are.
I mean, that's just skill. That's incredible. Do the horses start to do that themselves a little bit? Do they feed into it?
They do feed into it, and when asked correctly, they will offer that.
It's also important to get two very similar horses. That's really
when
hard.
you're starting to do pairs and
Teams?
not as much,
Oh,
but
okay.
a pair is the most important or most difficult because you need two horses which are virtually identical.
Okay.
And which I've never actually had because I've always wanted to drive a team and we were always moving towards it. So although you can see that the color aren't the same, they don't.
I feel like we could use some shoe polish and fix
Yeah.
that for you. But
Yeah.
no, I know you can't.
And so but again, we at this level we select horses that can just move and got
Okay.
the temperament for it, which
Okay.
makes our job easier.
So what is the most important criteria when looking for a driving horse?
Temperament.
That's
So
it.
the
Okay.
very first thing is temperament. Most horses would be willing to pull, and everyone thinks horses are scared of carriages. They're actually not scared of carriages. They're scared of everything. They're flight animals. So you got to find a horse with temperament, with courage, and it's courage to behave in a way that goes contrary to its survival. So the first thing we do is we test the temperament, and if the horse shows temperament, we can train it from there.
And is that with long lines and things like that?
Correct,
Okay.
yeah. And I mean, most horses, we've got at the competitions now, we've got Frisians, we've got Boerperde, we've got Warm Bloods,
That's wonderful.
Ponies. Yeah,
We've actually got the right horses in South Africa
have.
to lend themselves to the sport.
we have.
Okay, all these people who have a sneaky Frisian hiding in their backyard. Corin Jordan says, so exciting that driving is coming back. If one would like to start, she said, do you need different carriages for the different disciplines, which we actually just discussed. But what's the carriage you should start with?
Correct, no. Let's clear it up. So locally, the rules are that we drive in a single carriage. You're welcome to use more, but these are the problems with the entry into our sport is the cost and the equipment.
So that's like quite a barrier to entry, you were saying.
So, you need a harness. Harnesses aren't that expensive. I mean, in general, they're probably cheaper. A reasonably good harness imported is a lot cheaper than a saddle.
And I mean, I'm not asking you to commit to this, but like roundabout price range for that?
For a single, anywhere between 8,000 and 12,000 rand, we could
That's-
bring in very, very, very
Yeah.
nice ones made out of the Netherlands. And, there's probably a bit of import duties on that because we carry them in, but
Don't get yourself arrested.
Yeah.
Please don't leave here.
But,
Been smuggling harnesses into the country.
But so the harness themselves, obviously, if there's 2 horses or 4 horses, then those
of course.
escalate.
If you ride 4 horses,
Correct.
that's similar.
And then you need a carriage. Carriages, the locally built carriages are older ones, but we pick them up between 20 and 30,000 rand.
That's really
maybe a
not-
little bit more for really well maintained ones.
Okay.
So, but again, CDSA, Carriage Driving South Africa, we've acquired through the years a couple of carriages which we
That's
own.
wonderful.
So
Okay.
if people want to come to a competition and provided their horses are trained, they mustn't run off with their carriage. But because
Bye.
because not only must you get to the show, but you must also get your carriage there. So
Yeah.
you don't just have a horse
you, of
box,
course, you have to have a...
another vehicle with another trailer to
Okay.
get the trailer. So that's another complication. So in that case, we say, well, we've got carriages there. Bring the
Okay.
horse, bring the harness. And you
We'll
can use
simplify the process for
Correct.
constituents a little bit.
Yeah.
That's really lovely.
that. Yeah.
Okay. And does that make a difference to the horses if they're in a different carriage week to week and then...
Once they are experienced enough, no.
No, I know, I'm
in the
just
beginning, there's
yeah.
a little bit of a rattle. They feel a bit different.
Okay.
But No, not that we found.
Okay. And the process, if you decide you want to now have a go at driving, what is the process to start with? I mean, we were talking about barriers to entry. Besides the fact that the carriage is an expense, I don't think it's that much of an expense compared to what a saddle. And I've got a friend of mine who's just been buying saddle after saddle after saddle. And, everyone says, yes, this one's the right one. It's not the right one. Sells it at a loss, gets another saddle. But training's quite a consideration there.
It is, and this is one of the problems. A lot of the trainers that were there have retired.
Massive loss of knowledge to the industry.
Absolute skill loss has occurred, and those that are left just don't have the time. I work full time, so and I've got a young chap from Zimbabwe, but he's a brilliant driver. He's our top novice driver and won all the novice competitions. And he starts my young horses, and we help others. There's another driver that's part of our committee now that's also started helping new drivers break in their horses and bring them along. And then once the horses are going, and we've got almost like a grounded policy to assist people with that, because that takes a bit of time. Once you get to a point where you want to start to really learn the technique of driving, we're starting to offer clinics where we on a Saturday, fantastic. Everyone comes, we drive, we make sure they can harness safely, the safety aspects are drilled in, and then we do like a little bit of a competition, sort of
training show, almost. Okay.
And then if everyone's comfortable, on the next day we'll actually have the official show.
Okay.
So
that's wonderful.
We started doing that.
And where's the hub of driving at the moment in South Africa?
So unfortunately, Kyle Army no longer doesn't offer any driving. So my facilities in Benoni is the one that we use the most, because I've got a full international level driving setup there. We've got a cones arena, dressage arena. I've got 8 international hazards built. And a colleague of mine that's now been driving and become my teammate overseas, he's now started, got his 3 stars this year.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so from next year, he's also driving a team. He's just jumped in there, and that's fantastic.
Deep end.
So that we can, because we want to get a WEG, and it's only teams at WEG. So
how many more? So how many more people do you need to get in the next 2 years?
If we got 2, we can.
Is it okay?
We can enter it.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Okay.
And so he's also built a wonderful facility down in Meyerton. So we travel between the 2 at the moment.
That's wonderful.
We used to use in Nanda Country Base. They were still quite open to us to come and build over there.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, so that's always an option.
Okay, that's great. I suppose it depends where there's a demand. So if we can build up a clinic anywhere. So if people do want to get a clinic of interested people, can they contact you and you can do a demonstration and just do a bit of education around it?
Absolutely.
Okay. And how do people contact you?
They can email me.
Okay.
On Wayne at Niekerk, ANIKER.co.za.
I saw there was a hesitation as you were giving out your information on the internet. Don't worry. I'm sure you won't be too harassed.
It's all good. No, it's out there in any case on our webpage, but you can contact us, no problem. Okay. And we've got people that will assist as well. We're doing our best to try and bring all new drivers in now. And people mustn't think that they can't drive or they drive at a very low level. Everyone is at the moment. And you're not coming to compete against me, or if I compete against Ian. We'll push ourselves. But
what are the grading levels for driving?
So we have a pre-novice where you really just started and you don't want pressure, and then we'll have the novice, and then the open.
Okay, all right.
And you have to qualify to
move up. Yeah. Okay, is that based on like a percentage score? You earn points
correct.
And go up.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So and that'll be based on obviously your level of experience, because you'll be gaining experience to move up to the next level.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good escalation. So Wayne has kindly offered, if anybody would like, not anybody, if somebody wants a driving experience, he's willing to uprun somebody. I see we've got 14 people watching. If anyone would like to take him up on this, please leave a message in the comments and we will do our best to connect you. But right now, I want to carry on having a look at the pictures. The other thing I want to speak to you did mention the evolving safety standards.
Yes.
Which is obviously quite important. How does that feature in the rules? Is that quite a predominant theme in the rules?
Yeah, very much so. So there's obviously safety for the driver, safety for the backsteppers, and
explain to me, you said when you go up to a team, you have to have 2 backsteppers.
Correct. So, so you have to have 2 on the carriage.
Is that because it's a bigger carriage?
A bigger carriage,
okay.
Yeah. So in general, what we'd have is what we'd call our navigator staying right behind us, who's also moving and weighting the carriage down, and then the back step or the ballast on the bottom step, doing the hard grunt work, keeping the carriage down, moving it off the posts. Yeah, in a pair and a single, only one person does all 3 jobs.
Why does your navigator not do the dressage phase with you? Does he not have to?
No, so we can have different back steps.
Oh, that's interesting.
Phases,
okay.
And he just doesn't look as good as the one on the back. So
that's lovely.
Yeah.
Okay, so explain to me. So sorry, we were talking about the safety. The carriage obviously has safety specs.
Correct. The carriage does have. So there's certain aspects of the carriage that it has. The newer carriages have got, like rear wheel steering and delayed steering. We have brakes. We have back and front brakes. We have.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay.
In a pair and a team, we have a third wheel brake, so that we'll brake the turntable. So if we start fishtailing, we can correct that. And
that's a lot to manage.
Yeah, and a marathon is bash bars around to protect so we don't get stuck on. Well,
so are those the silver bars that I'm seeing there? Okay.
Yeah. So the marathon carriages, and it's also heavy. The presentation carriage weigh whatever.
Okay.
But this has to, for a pair, for instance, international, got to weigh at least 360 kilograms, 600 for a team.
Okay.
So
is that so it's less likely to tip over while you're taking a hair-raising turn?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So from a carriage point of view, that's it. Harnesses are checked. We tend to drive in those neck collars, as you see there. We don't have, if it's a single horse, it has to have breeching. So that's a strap that comes around its bum.
Okay.
And the reason for that is if you suddenly stop, it prevents the carriage from hitting the horse.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
So you protect them. Yeah, they connected to the pole in front, so that's why we don't need it for the pairs.
Okay.
But that means that your carriage has to have brakes, so that you can keep the carriage off the horse.
Okay.
From a driver point of view, and your backstepper, obviously we wear body protection, helmets, and
it's such a thrill to see the South African flag on that and South Africa on your back there. That's really amazing, Wayne.
Yeah. And then the most important safety aspects is obviously for the horses. So, in the marathon, they are booted up all round.
Okay.
The one thing about driving, a lot of people ask us, is our bits, that they look very harsh. And we can use any bits whatsoever.
Okay.
There's almost nothing stopping us. So in my bit room, I must have 30 different bits. Okay. And each of them do something else. But the idea is, if the horse is taking proper contact, you don't need to stop it like that.
The same as riding. Yeah. Okay.
So, but obviously the way they bit it is checked. And our nosebands have to be reasonably loose now, because they're breathing hard in the marathon. So you've got to be at least 4 fingers in under the noseband.
4 fingers. That's great. It's going to be an interesting thing to see, especially in I don't want to say especially in high-level dressage, but it's an often very contentious discussion with, the stewards and the officials checking the horses afterwards. You also said that after the marathon being in 2 parts, there's a vet check in between.
Correct.
And from what level does that come in?
So that will come in from, even at our national levels.
That's wonderful. That's really good.
We have, if it's just a small event locally and we can see the horses are doing all right, then we'll keep an eye on it. The technical delegate will keep an eye on the horses. But from national, there's a vet check, and there's a vet check at halfway and at the end of the marathon. They'll check twice.
And what can they be rung out for besides soundness? Heart rate, breathing?
So heart rates, temperature.
Okay. Oh, okay. So very similar to the endurance and event horses.
Okay. Because they work really hard. And then obviously any blood. Blood in the mouth, we unfortunately do get. And that's not because of the bit and hard-handedness by the driver. You can tell that because then it's hurt on the bars, but they sometimes the pair clash heads as they take the bend because one's quicker than the other, and they can sometimes bite their tongues, and so there's sometimes a bit of blood in the mouth. But they get checked, and if there is, the vet will come back to you half an hour later in your stable when the bits are out and everything's washed, and check again. And but we're very, very careful of how we handle the horses.
I wanted to ask you, I noticed you had studs in the shoes in the previous, and is that a standard for, and for the grass as well?
Yes.
Okay. So I was interested there to see.
We got studs, and we have it. We even have it if it's a bit thick or it's a bit dewy or it's been raining in the dressage as well, definitely in the cones.
They're not allowed boots in the dressage, similar to dressage. No. Okay, so the rules are actually quite similar, how they carry across.
Correct.
From a rider attire perspective, besides like the apron and everything else, is it color specific, or is it kind of like showing what looks good?
Yeah, so for the marathon, so for the turnout, correct. It's what you think works well to show your team and yourself and your backstepper as a single picture. You can choose whatever as long as you're wearing your apron, your gloves, and your hat. For the marathon, over and above the safety gear, you can wear anything you want. We wear jeans, boots that are comfortable and strong enough. We like to wear our national colours when we drive.
That's lovely.
In the international competitions. Because in the beginning, it was always fascinating for the other countries to
these South Africans there.
So, some of them don't even know why we're there.
Good luck.
Yeah, correct.
I see Dutch Racers. That's the brand of. Oh, really? That's fantastic.
So it's made by a company called Van den Heuvel. They a Dutch company, probably the best.
I thought you were going to say McLaren for a second, or Okay.
It's basically that.
Okay.
But it's probably Red Bull.
Okay. Okay. And the tails that are tied up, is that for all of the phases?
No. That's for the sometimes for the marathon we can leave them down. The reason we tie them up, especially in the pairs, so that the tails don't hook over the reins. Because if the tail gets over the reins, it's very difficult to control, and at speed,
Yeah, you don't want to be flicking at a rein.
You don't want to get,
Okay.
So that's one of the reasons why we tie their tails.
Okay. That looks like quite a mechanism there in front of your feet that's covered with a bit of pleather almost. Is that the braking mechanism?
That's a pole going between the two horses that they're connected to. But it moves up and down sideways.
Oh, okay. So that's quite a bit of engineering. Okay.
Yeah, it is.
Can we go on to the next picture? Thank you so much. Oh, and that's what a wonderful picture.
Yeah.
Where was this?
This was at Olympic at my first World Championships.
Oh, really?
2017.
That's amazing.
Yeah. See, I'm a bit crouched and a bit nervous. But,
I can't tell. Looks amazing.
Yeah, and
who are these horses?
So this is Everest over here. This was his first ride, and he was just old enough to go to World Championships. So he had just gone 6 years old.
How old is that? 6. That's amazing.
Yeah,
okay.
he was a baby, and the other one is it's called Maro. Fortunately, passed away. He was my old experienced war horse.
So do you always try and do that? Do you always try and pair up a young horse with an older horse for experience? In an ideal world?
No. In an ideal world, when competing, you want 2 old experienced horses. So.
I mean, that goes without saying.
Everest is there. He's now my oldest horse he's my oldest horse in the team.
Okay.
I've now just got babies overseas, and he's the old boy.
And how old is he as the old boy?
He's 12.
Okay. Oh, that's still young.
Yeah, he is.
That's amazing. So do you have quite a long competition career with a good driving horse?
Absolutely. We look after our horses really well. They worked well, but they get vetted twice a year to pick up any injuries. They get rested properly. So a driving horse, I still drive my very first horse, and
that's great.
Yeah, and he's lightning fast in the marathon. Boyd Axel used to use him in the wheel in the indoor team, and he's now 20. And
that's fantastic.
You wouldn't say so, and I drive him 3 times a week.
I suppose there's also, I'm trying to think, from like a wear and tear on backs and joints and things, it would be interesting to see a study on that, from a pulling, which horses are designed to do.
Yeah. But
That's
these
quite
horses,
fascinating.
are specifically bred for this. These are Dutch harness horses or Gelderlanders. You know,
They're very
specifically-
typical for the breed, actually. That's really interesting
Yeah.
to see.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, that's not Everest, is
No,
it?
that is Maro on the right, and that's Clinton on the left. So that was our really fast marathon team.
Yeah, they couldn't
Yeah.
even catch you guys.
No, that was when the whistle blew, and these two horses knew their job, so then they would just go and
But that hind leg, that's amazing.
yeah.
I remember speaking to, I went to go meet Rodney Foster for a course that I was doing, and he did a little display for us then. And he spoke about how the horses would lock on the flags. And you had to be really careful about where you aimed them, because if they locked on, that's where you were going.
That's right.
Even if, so when you talk about sometimes you have to double back out of an obstacle and go somewhere else, he said, they would just be like, oh, that's clearly where we're going. And,
That's right. Yeah, that's incredible.
A question, do you, in the dressage, I'm presuming mostly, do you get judged on your position?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So there's
as
there's
the driver.
There's marks for the driver at the end.
Okay.
And so not really for every movement, but definitely at the end. And then there's
Like an overall collective mark.
yeah,
Okay.
specifically for driver and then for total turnout as well. So
Oh,
there's two
lovely.
separate marks for that.
Okay. Okay. So beauty pageants mark there. Okay.
Correct.
All right.
That's why he's not on the back. And
That's a very good point. Okay. And this looks like it was the same venue as earlier on.
yeah, this is Lipica. So
That's a wonderful photo.
yeah, that's the horses just going through the
So I'm
water.
interested to look at the bits that you were saying people think is strong, because I love the Liverpool bit. I think it's such a marvel of function. Like, if you were going to buy one bit, this is quite an interesting bit to buy, because where you've got it on the horse closest to us, it's basically a hanging cheek snaffle.
Correct.
Effectively.
That's exactly
So you've actually got negative pole pressure there.
correct.
It's a really mild bit. So then on your next horse, I see you've got it on the
on the
next mildest setting.
First lot, and that just because gave me a bit of brakes as well, and I can hold Mara back because he was
Very keen.
oof. Yeah. So, but in sometimes on dressage, you'll see we'll put it on the second slot, which is effectively a very strong setting, but it's not. If you need to put your horse on the second slot, you stop him going forward. You're doing everything wrong.
It's like
That's
the
to-
double bridle. It's the
Correct.
refinement
That's
of the aid.
Correct. You want him just to sit back on his hocks so that when he extends, he can really extend out of the shoulder. So it just helps you and get balance on him.
Wonderful.
But our bits also, not only do we have a Liverpool, they can move, they split in the middle, they split on the sides, it depends. We have arch forward, we arch up, depending if the horse's head keeps going up, we want to search for contact going down. So we play around with the bits until we find one that makes him happy.
How varied are your harness options? Not tremendously. I don't suppose it makes a massive difference.
No,
Okay.
not really. For dressage, you can have the full collars, which looks beautiful. I don't use them yet.
Do you not feel grown up yet for the collars enough? Wayne?
My coach, the world champion, told me I don't drive well enough.
Really? So you have to earn your collar.
Yeah.
I love that.
So, yeah.
Okay.
So,
Wayne, I can't wait to watch you go in your collar for the first time. That's fantastic.
yeah, I know.
Okay. Really having to earn that.
Those are basically the two types of turnouts, and then obviously the different makes are slightly different. But,
Okay.
Yeah.
And blinkers seem to be a little bit of a contentious issue from a little bit of the research that I was doing for this, where there seems to be quite a divided community that you shouldn't need a blinker and your horse should be fine.
Yeah.
And other people saying, no, you need a blinker for focus purposes. And I see even in show jumping, I don't know if you've seen, you get the mini
little ones,
blinker.
yeah.
Yes.
Look, it depends on how much you value your life. Because these horses are magnificent, and they really are. But, a horse is a horse, and you'll see something
flight animal, like you
out of the
said.
side of the, so that does focus them to
I
where
suppose
you
where
need
the
it.
adrenaline is so, it's very easy to control things in this very subtle environment at home where everything's in your favor.
Correct. And it could just be a dog that runs out and it suddenly
Spectator
screws.
with an umbrella.
And put 2 or 3 strides, and we always say on that third
And that
stride
catches.
you must get that horse back, otherwise it's going to run, because that's a horse. So the blinkers do focus it onto its job at hand and stops the peripheral issues that it may have.
Okay.
However, we've got horses that we also have cutaway blinkers. My leader in my team overseas, which was one of my older horses, he's almost got no blinkers, and he can turn around and look at me and look at the carriage, and but he feels
He knows the job.
yeah, so he doesn't feel happy if he doesn't have it.
Oh, that's amazing.
So some of the horses don't cope fine by looking around.
Okay.
But in general, the blinkers are there for a safety reason.
Okay.
It's not to force the horse in anything else. It's to keep his attention focused on where he's supposed to work and where he's feeling safe.
No,
That's
listen,
his safe area.
Yeah, I've had that moment where you can feel the hysteria grow, and they go, "Is it a lion? I think it's a lion. It could be a lion," you know, and you
That's
need
right.
to calm all of that down. Are there variations in things like your reins? Like I know rein choice is very personal for
Yeah, they are
normal riders.
So with the reins, they can come in leather. They can come in synthetic. Like those are rubber. For the marathon over there, they've got little notches on.
Yes, like
so
the
that
cleats.
that you can grip on. I've actually started tying knots in them so they don't slip out my hand.
Oh, okay.
Because they can really pull, when they go in there. But then in dressage, for instance, I use specially made leather ones that are soft on the hand that slip through the gloves for the one-handed movements.
Okay.
So
Do you have to do some movements with one hand?
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, we've got to do rein back, we've got to do collection, one-handed movements.
That's wonderful. We'll need a video. Actually, I think we need to share a video on the YouTube and the social channel. Have we got more photos? Thank you. Oh, this is such a lovely photo.
Yeah, that's just showing sometimes the
going,
hills that
really
we go,
interesting.
it's really, really steep, and that's, going in and out of the hazard.
So besides training your horses, what would a normal work week look like for a driving horse? Like, do you ride them at all in between? Do you?
Yeah, so my wife, for instance, on a Monday would get lunched, or one or two of them would be ridden under saddle. Normally, Tuesday to Friday, when I get a chance, I'll work them. If I don't, they will either be lunched. My older horses, my retired guys, they get a day off. The youngsters work, and then my really young horses will be either worked under saddle or driven by my crew.
Okay, that's fantastic. And the hill work, like how much of hill work do you have? I'm sure that, I mean, it's a massive demand to pull a carriage up there. How often will you do that kind of training?
Tell you the truth, in the Netherlands, very seldom, because we don't really.
Because you don't have access to it.
We've got a built one on the property, but it's part of a hazard, and Boyd's a bit precious about it, so we don't use it often. But we drive the horses hard. When they work, they go out for an hour and a half. These horses are strong and they fit, and they have to be. So when they hit a hill like that, you sometimes wonder what are they going to do, and they jinx left, right, and then they go up, and
that's great.
Cope fine, yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought it felt like there were lots more, but that was lovely to see. So anybody looking to get involved in driving can get hold of you.
Yeah.
They should start long lining their horse, assuming that their horse has a nice mind.
Correct.
Those are the next protocols. And then pretty much besides the harness and the carriage, I mean, everything else, the rules are very similar. The training methodology is quite synchronized to everything that we are doing.
Absolutely.
It seems to be a pretty easy entry.
It's horsemanship. Everything for us when we drive is based on the outside hand, outside rein contact. That's where it is. You want your engagement from and softening from your inside. Whether you
Superior
change rein,
equine athlete.
Yeah, that's what it is. So all the training is exactly the same, which is why they can take to being trained under saddle as well, and then switched across.
So what's next for carriage driving in South Africa? Hopefully.
Well, now we needing to get as many people interested and start driving again, starting with our competitions. We're having our small comps. The more experienced drivers, we've been speaking to the show jumpers. We're wanting to have a jump and drive, which is a competition done at Aachen. So
Seriously, that's amazing.
So what happens there is they have the
only the show jumpers would do it. Dressage riders would never. I can see why.
Yeah. So off the eventer goes off, and he does his course in the main arena, and then two show jumpers go, and it's all against time. So you have to touch whips. The next one's off. Time is obviously your finalizing thing, but any balls are turned into and poles are turned into time. And then right at the end, when the last show jumper crosses the line, the eventer's got to run, jump on the back of the carriage and go with the carriage driver.
That's amazing.
And then we do 2 hazards and 10 cones, like in an indoor fashion.
I'm looking this up right now. Jump and drive.
Jump and drive.
That is phenomenal.
Yeah.
I'm convinced if we can find more ways to make the sport fun,
Yeah.
This is what?
Another-
Okay. I was about to say the first thing that came up is immediately it's a jumpandrive.com, but this is a car dealer in Texas. Maybe not that one. That's fantastic. Well, I'll definitely try and find a link and then share it with the SAEF channel. And what's next for you, Wayne? Besides an entire team of horses for next World Games.
Yeah, well, that's it. Working hard towards that, and driving a team now is a huge step up because of their rein handling. You know, before you hold one rein for one horse, and then you hold two reins for two horses. Because you don't know if you saw the rein split in down the middle.
By the wither, yeah.
Yeah, so, and that's your connecting rein. So if you pull on the left rein, you obviously put on the outside of the left horse, but the outside on the inside part of the right horse. When you've got a team in front of you, you've got the leaders are your horses in front and your wheelers are your horses at the back, the powerhouses. And essentially, you've only got two reins coming from the front and two from the back. So you drive
terrifying.
You drive your leaders off the front of your hand and your wheelers off the back of your hand. And your leaders need to know.
Oh, yeah, I can see the split. Okay.
Yeah. So you've got to be taking loops into your hands to be able to tell the
Are you allowed to color code them? I used to have like a red long lining line and a blue long lining. Oh, can you?
No, you can't.
That feels like that would help.
Yeah. No, you can. But yeah, so rein handling is what you don't see is that's really difficult, and at speed and changing direction is really hard. So, you know, that's an art, which is why, you know, the pairs get kept at 100 entries at a world championship. They're now going to try and extend it a bit more.
That's amazing in a sport that is struggling with numbers across the world, but particularly in South Africa. To be able to cap your entries is pretty outstanding at that level.
It is.
No, we can't take more. They're more qualified and they're more keen, but we can't. That's great.
Yeah, singles and pairs, it's huge. Teams, you could get about 50, 55 top. That's about it, because it's really tough.
Well, it's so technical. I mean, that's really and I think finding one good driving horse, then two, then four. I mean, that's really quite a thing. Do you have to have a backup horse if you have a team of four? Okay, so you actually have 5 horses.
So we've got 5 horses, and with a pair, we've got 3 horses. So
that makes sense.
Got a backup horse.
Okay, spare wheel.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
And you can change them around to each phase. So where we saw Everest in his first competition, he only did the dressage, and then
that's a wonderful way.
The other horse came in and did the other 2 phases, the hard work. So the youngster doesn't do the hard work, the old boy does the hard work.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
That's
great. And not just that, you know, like the youngsters overseas for the dressage, and my right wheel leader, the one in front, comes into the wheel for the marathon because he's brilliant and saves me all the time. So, you know, they change position as well. And
I love that. That's job. The way you speak about them. It sounds like you're delegating to a co-worker. I really love that. Yeah, no, he has to do that. You know, that's so. We definitely had very keen interest from Corin Jordan, who wants to come join you for a carriage driving experience. Corin Jordan, I think, is actually she works for Equifeeds. So, but Corin has also invited me to come along with, and I'm not going to say no, Wayne. I'm just going to barge in and come. I think we'll have to do some GoPro footage and get this. It sounds fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us. And that's just a reminder that your email address is wayne@anniker, ANIKER.co.za for anyone who is interested in taking him up on a carriage driving experience and getting started. And I want to say, is there anything else you wanted to add, Wayne, before we close it off?
No, except thank you very much for having me. And, you know, anyone that's interested, and even if you're a bit nervous, we've got a lot of nervous drivers that have started. Please come and join us. It's an absolutely fantastic sport.
As long as you don't have nervous horses, I think that's the important thing.
You're right, yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us, Wayne. It was really lovely to meet you, and we can't wait. So what's your next competition?
It'll probably be Kronenberg in the Netherlands next year, early in April.
We're going to have to get Luan to take some video footage and share it with us.
Yeah, I'll ask you just not to swear on it. Yeah.
Does she do that a lot? Okay. Thank you, Wayne van Niekerk, the president of Carriage Driving South Africa, hoping that his groom doesn't have to swear too much at him over in the Netherlands at their next show. If anyone is interested in carriage driving, please contact Wayne. Thank you for joining us. Next week, we are really excited to be hosting one of the top veterinarians in the world talking about lameness. That's Dr. Sue Dyson. She will be joining us on Wednesday at 7 p.m. here on Zoom. Sue Dyson, of course, is the creator of the video that is trending in the horse community at the moment, the 24 Behaviors of Pain. I would really recommend anyone to have a watch and schedule that in your calendar for next week, Wednesday, and take advantage of asking such a leading industry professional all the questions that you and your horse might want to know. Thank you for joining us this evening here on the South African Equestrian Federation podcast.